If I asked you who the greatest conqueror of all time was, who would you choose? Most people would probably think of Alexander the Great, Julius Caesar, or Napoleon. And for good reason. They all built enormous empires. But there was one man whose name spread even farther than theirs. A man whose armies advanced from Asia to the very gates of Europe. A ruler who created the largest contiguous land empire in history, larger than any that came before or after him. His name was Genghis Khan. But what truly makes his story remarkable is not just his conquests, it is where he came from. The man who became one of history's greatest rulers was not born in a palace. He was not the son of a wealthy king, and no one could have imagined that he would one day change the course of history. In fact, during his childhood, everything suggested that he probably would not even survive to adulthood. To understand how that happened, we need to travel back more than 800 years to the endless grasslands of Mongolia. This land was nothing like Europe or China. There were no towering cities, no massive stone castles, and no stable kingdoms living side by side in peace. On the Mongolian steppe, survival was the only rule. Families constantly moved with their herds in search of fresh grazing land for their horses, sheep, and goats. Winters were brutally cold, while summers were dry and unforgiving. If food ran out or the livestock died, it could mean the end of an entire family. But nature was not the greatest danger. People were. The steppe was divided among countless small tribes that were almost constantly at war with one another. Everything could change overnight. Yesterday's ally might become tomorrow's enemy. Horses were stolen, camps were raided, and entire families were often taken captive. In this world, children learned to ride horses and shoot bows from an early age, because they knew those skills could one day mean the difference between life and death. Around the year 1162, in this harsh and unforgiving world, a boy named Temüjin was born. At the time, no one could have imagined that one day the entire world would know his name. His father Yesugei was the leader of a small Mongol tribe, so Temujin's early childhood was relatively peaceful. His family had enough food, owned horses, and it seemed that a secure future lay ahead of him. But on the Mongolian steppe, fortune could disappear in an instant. When Temüjin was about 9 years old, his father encountered members of a rival tribe during a journey. They recognized who he was and decided to take revenge. They invited him to a feast and secretly poisoned his food. Yesugei managed to make it home, but he died a few days later. With his death, Temujin's family lost far more than just a father. They lost the one man who had protected them from the dangers of the outside world. Then something happened that no one expected. The tribe simply abandoned the widow and her children. They offered no help, shared no food, and left them alone in the middle of the vast steppe. Overnight, they lost everything. They no longer had enough livestock, they had no warriors to defend them, and they had no idea how they would survive the coming winter. To stay alive, the family gathered wild plants, dug up roots, and caught small fish. Even then, there often was not enough food for everyone. If someone had looked at that starving little boy back then, they never would have believed that only a few decades later, millions of people would fear his name. Yet it was precisely those years of hardship that shaped Temüjin into the man he would become. He learned that power could vanish overnight. He learned that loyalty could not be inherited. It had to be earned. And perhaps most importantly, he realized that survival did not always belong to the strongest. Sometimes it belonged to the one who was smarter, more determined, and willing to do what others would not. Temüjin did not know it yet, but this was the beginning of the journey that would one day make the world remember him by another name, Genghis Khan. Over the years, Temüjin slowly but steadily gained more followers. Not because he was the strongest warrior, but because he became a very different kind of leader than the rulers of his time. Most tribal chiefs gave the most important positions only to members of their own family. Temüjin introduced something completely new. To him, it did not matter what family someone was born into. What mattered was loyalty and ability. Even a simple shepherd could become a general if he proved himself worthy. At the time, this idea was almost unimaginable, yet it became one of the main reasons why more and more people chose to follow him. As his power grew, he united the Mongol tribes one by one. Some joined him willingly, while others were defeated in battle. After decades of fighting, the moment finally arrived that would change the course of history forever. In 1206, the leaders of the Mongol tribes gathered at a great assembly known as a Kurultai. There, Temüjin was chosen as the supreme leader of all the tribes, and from that day on, he received a new name. The world would know him as Genghis Khan. The title roughly meant universal ruler, or ruler above all others. Many people think that this is where the story ends, but in reality, it was only the beginning. Genghis Khan had one clear goal. He wanted to build an empire unlike anything the world had ever seen. He completely reorganized his army. He introduced the decimal system, where every 10 warriors formed a unit. 10 of those units became a force of 100 men, then 1,000, and finally 10,000. This system gave the Mongol army incredible discipline and speed. While other empires still relied on slow-moving armies, Mongol horsemen could travel as much as 100 kilometers in a single day. Over the following years, one neighboring country after another fell to the Mongols. First came parts of northern China, followed by Central Asia. Then the ruler of the Khwarezmian Empire made a terrible mistake. He ordered the execution of Genghis Khan's merchants and envoys, believing it would demonstrate his strength. But to the Mongols, killing envoys was an unforgivable insult. Genghis Khan's revenge was more devastating than almost anything the world had seen before. Dozens of cities were destroyed, entire armies disappeared, and the lives of millions of people were changed forever. Even so, describing him only as a conqueror would not tell the whole story. Genghis Khan also introduced laws that were centuries ahead of their time. He removed special privileges for officers during battle, allowed conquered peoples to practice their own religions, and created a vast messenger network that allowed news and military orders to travel thousands of kilometers in just a few days. The Silk Road became safer, trade flourished, and connections between East and West grew stronger than ever before. Of course, the darker side of his conquests was enormous. Historians estimate that tens of millions of people died during his campaigns. Some cities were wiped completely off the map, and for generations afterward, people still spoke of the Mongol armies with fear. Because of this, some consider Genghis Khan the greatest military commander in history, while others see him as one of the most ruthless conquerors the world has ever known. The truth probably lies somewhere between those two views. In 1227, during another military campaign, Genghis Khan died. The exact cause of his death remains unknown even today. Some sources claim he died from illness. Others believe he was killed after suffering injuries in an accident. There are also stories that say he died from wounds received in battle. Whatever the truth may be, historians agree on one thing. His empire did not collapse after his death. His sons and grandsons continued the conquests, and only a few decades later, the Mongol Empire stretched from Eastern Europe all the way to the Pacific Ocean. Perhaps that is the most remarkable part of Genghis Khan's story. He was not born as the heir to a mighty kingdom. He did not inherit a wealthy empire or an unstoppable army. He was a starving boy, abandoned by his own tribe. Yet from that hopeless beginning, he rose to become one of the most influential figures in human history. More than 800 years later, his name is still known across the world. Very few people have changed history on such a massive scale, and even fewer began their journey in such an unlikely way. If you enjoyed this documentary, be sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you do not miss our next documentary. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next video.